So if you are a man of the age that we are, then wrestling has played an important part of your life at some point. But one of the most important things about wrestling, whether you know it or not, is you have to have a villain. You have to have a heel. You have to have somebody that is the anti-hero, that the hero can come in and it makes the hero look good. If the villain is not good, if the villain is not strong, then it does not work. And so just like with wrestling, yeah, a big part of the NBA is you've got to have a villain in the league. And it's even better if you've got really good villains in the league to help offset your heroes in the league. So today we're going to dive into the biggest heels in the league, why we hate their damn guts so much, and who we think is the ultimate heel villain in the NBA right now. Let's dive in. Let's do it.
This is the Upshot Podcast. We're about to break down the biggest moments in the NBA.
Long three! Tie game with 5 seconds remaining!
And why they matter now. This is the Upshot Podcast.
Welcome to the Upshot Podcast, where we talk about all the biggest moments in the NBA. Throughout the years, there have been some amazing matchups, and I think, you know, in sort of the historical context, we get very focused on our Michael Jordans, you know, our Kobe Bryants, our LeBron James, as we get, you know, the big stars. But what sort of gets lost in the historical context of everything a lot of times is who was the person they were playing at the time that could have been the Michael Jordan, that could have been the LeBron James or the Kobe Bryant, but they were the villain. So today we're going to talk about what makes a good villain. What is sort of the core of this, you know, super important part of it all. So in the context of basketball, what is it that absolutely makes a good villain? Like, what do you guys think? I feel like, you know, in wrestling, it's very easy to sort of point out some of the main things. But what are some of the main things that, you know, really make a good villain in the NBA? And I've got quite a few people that I just need to throw right under the damn bus when we get going with this.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, right out of the gate, you know, good villain. What are some of the qualities that you guys feel, you know, puts the person in good basketball player? Let's just
They
stop
almost
there.
always are.
Oh yeah. Let's stop there. They have to be amazing at the game of basketball.
Oh yeah.
But what are the things that make these people where they're not so much our heroes, they're the person that we love to hate?
Well, I think you touched on it immediately right there. You love to love certain guys. So we all have probably our own favorite guys. We have our own favorite team members. We have our own favorite teams. We have our own favorite single competitive players that we love to watch play. So immediately we're going to gravitate to the ones who butt heads against those guys. The first one I could think of right off the bat, Zach Randolph. I always loved Zach Randolph as a Memphis Grizzlies fan. He was my boy. But, man, that guy would get up in a dust-up with anybody at any moment. And the minute he got into a bust-up with him, that guy sucked. He was on the radar. He's the biggest heel I know in the world. We'll talk about some of them later on, but that's a big piece to me.
So, and what I love about this, and this is what sort of strikes me, is a heel in the NBA, the context of the NBA, somebody that are like my favorite villains. They always think that they're the good guy.
Oh, I love it.
And, you know, over the years...
What do you mean? Come on.
Over the years, I think that's the fun part of this whole thing is you put these players in a position where they're making a lot of money. And, you know, you've got an incredible amount of fans that are behind them. And they're not behind them because they're great players necessarily, even though they are great players. They're behind them because they're in
the bubble.
Team.
They're in the bubble.
Right. You're in a bubble. And so I think one of the things that's hard for, you know, mere mortals like us to understand is when you're in that bubble, you know, how do you manage that whole thing of I'm not the good guy without some context of, you know, being outside of the bubble for a little bit. So convinced they're a good guy. Like what are some other things that like could have kind of put you guys in that mode of, but I think that one's huge. They always seem to not be completely lost on the fact of what's, you know, context of how they exist in the rest of the world.
So speaking of context, this is what you bring up a really, really good point. And being in the bubble brings up a really good point too, because my favorite villain is the misplaced honor villain. The one that I know, I'm serious. I mean, it tell me something you enjoy more than Kyrie Irving telling
my
the young
gosh.
Celtics, like, oh, you guys don't know. No, you guys don't even know what it's like to be in the finals. And look, I agree. Kyrie has been in the finals and made a big shot. But you look at Kyrie being all of, 27 years old, riding on LeBron's coattails, and it's like, dude, you have no idea what you're talking, and these guys can smell it on you. They can smell it all over you.
They're riding on the shield of competition. That's what they're doing. They're literally like, because I'm competing for this or I'm trying to beat you for that. Like, they're trying to play it like, I play so hard, I do this so hard, so I would fight at the tip of a hat. You know, I would, do something dirty at the tip of that because I'm all in to win.
Sure.
And so they're using that shield of competition for whatever they want. Because as I run through my top guys, like all the stuff that really pisses me off about what they're doing is about stuff that they did to someone you love.
Right.
How could Lance Stevenson blow in LeBron's face? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
We're in the playoffs. We're blowing in people's
God, that's
faces.
a good one. That's a really good one.
But Lance is thinking of it like, if I get LeBron off his game,
This is how I
we
win.
just win.
This is how I win. Sure.
Who cares? You got 25 points. I'm blowing in your face, and we're about to win this. And so the next day, if it doesn't work, so what? No one's talking about
Yeah,
Lance.
who cares?
unless
Nobody cares about Lance
it
Stevenson.
worked,
Yeah.
Well, so being right in the thick of the competition and using it for that, like that's the thing, and that's actually a really good point. Is when you sort of get in that mode of tomorrow, if it didn't work, I still made Sports Center.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, how many times have you guys watched the clip of him blowing in LeBron's head?
Oh, it comes out every year. Every year since
The
then.
guy's a legend.
That's his Hall of Fame.
And
it really is.
No, and 100% if you're not necessarily going to make the Hall of Fame too. No, that's terrible to say. But, like, that's the thing. It's like you sort of get in this place of it puts you on the map too. But, that's neither here nor there. You said Kyrie. I think this is interesting. And so we're going to beat up on Kyrie before. Like, we're going to get into a whole list.
He deserves it.
We're going to get a whole list of heels
Yeah,
in
he's
just
got
a
it
few
coming.
minutes. Maybe Kyrie will make the list. I don't know.
Sure.
But so somebody like Kyrie, what are the things that are completely likable about this guy that some people get on board with him that put him in a position to where he can be who he is?
He's one of the most amazing players I've ever seen.
Well, in terms of what?
In terms of ball handling, shooting, passing. I mean, the way he thinks about the game. He's described himself. It was in a Jackie McMullen article. He's described himself as a basketball genius. And that's the thing is, I kind of loathe Kyrie right now, and I believe him.
Yes.
He's brilliant.
Yes.
He's a brilliant
The
basketball
NBA
player.
is made up of the guy that can create his own shot versus the guy that has the shot created for him. Kyrie can do all of
He
that.
can do whatever he
has
wants on the
vision
court.
to give the other guy the shot, or if he just wants, he can get to the rim, step back. I mean, he's got all the pieces. There's not one thing he can't do of what his size
Not a hole.
and
And I think I also think that he earned a lot of cred by going and playing second fiddle to LeBron.
Sure.
I think that gave him, in a lot of people's eyes, that gave him that another level of, this
did-
guy's willing to take a little bit of a back seat.
He didn't go. He was forced to.
Well,
but,
that's
but I
true.
did
Drafted
give him
in.
some credit.
Sure.
I actually liked him before that.
Well, he played
that's-
that card
that's-
well. He
Yes.
played it well.
I thought before the trade stuff came out, I mean, that's where the slide for me went. I was like, if LeBron is like some, overbearing leader that's, shutting everyone up and do what I say, like, I mean, I don't like that. I don't want to hear that from LeBron, but
Sure, right.
I mean, at least keep it in-house until you're not on the team.
As of
that's
now.
kind of how I felt.
Yeah, as of now, I'm going to say it's the worst thing that ever happened to him. I mean, it got him a ring. He made one of the biggest shots in the NBA Finals that's ever been made.
He's not undeserving of that. He's an NBA champion
He is.
quality player.
He is.
Let's get into that just a second because I think that's a really good point. You talk about Kyrie and why not make him sort of the poster child for this as we get into it. But, one of the qualities I think that, we've talked about in countless times when we're talking to ourselves and not recording is you put yourself in a position to where this person's great because they make the people you like look good.
That's right.
Okay, so that's a quality of a heel. You have to have someone that makes the people that you actually like or the person on your team actually look good. And so how important is it that he's with LeBron? And, winning, but also in losing too. Like what? Because LeBron, a lot of people hate LeBron. Like that's fine, and that's part of being at that level of fame. But I wouldn't classify LeBron as a heel necessarily. But you've got sort of this underling, who's amazingly talented, who is the person that absolutely every time you can be like, I hate that guy.
Yeah.
And he never wanted to be the underling, which is, I think that's what Joe was getting at. He never wanted to be that spot.
Right.
He kind of got forced into that spot.
And Marshall said it's a credential, though. Like, I mean, I can think of lots of guys in the league that I think are phenomenal talents that I wonder, if you paired that guy with LeBron, where's he at?
Right.
Like I think of like a Booker with the Suns. Like, who are the Suns? Are they still in the league?
Devin, stand out there and shoot, please. Yeah.
I mean, like people will be like, did you know Devin Booker scored 56 tonight? And I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's insane.
Is he still in the league?
Yeah.
And that's so sad, but like,
Well, they play in Phoenix, so you don't really know.
If he was on Cleveland though, and he's playing second fiddle to LeBron, you're like, well, LeBron had 12 of those assists, and he's on SportsCenter and all this, and it means something because he more than playing with LeBron, I guess I should say, because they won. And so I think that's what makes a heel go to the next level is like whenever the guy has a chance to be at a championship level, or a top tier, someone that you expect to be an all-star every year, and they're a heel, which we know some of those are coming up in the show. I mean, that's easy to hate on. Like, I hate a guy that I'm going to see in the playoffs that I hate,
Oh, absolutely.
So that's why Kyrie's up there. I mean, like, I don't think he does near enough things as what some of the other guys do that I dislike the way they play. But I'm like, when you're an ambassador of the game and you're a leader of the game, and I really hate to watch you play, like that sends it up for me.
Well, and so take this, what you say is I really hate to watch you play, but at the same time, I will go buy a ticket to a game to watch that guy play my team.
Because the skills are so good. They're off the
So
charts.
that's another one of those big points is you'd love to see them play. And I think that takes us to another point is this particular person has enough history, whether it be, in college before they got to the NBA or, high school before they got to the NBA or, but they've accomplished enough, and it's like you said, again, they've done enough. They've got enough history that you hate them. You want to root against them, but they've accomplished so much that you know that your team's in actual danger of losing because of this one individual that's on a team.
Oh, yeah.
And and this person may or may not be on our list, but there's a certain player that played in Chicago for a very long time that a lot of people hated, argued to be the GOAT, but very much could land in that heel spot because of what he could do. And so, like I said, it gets into some very interesting territory. Last thing that I'll say is, and I think this is super important.
Really important.
The last point here is this person can't, if you really take them out of the context of the game and on court, you can't really see them as an actual villain. Like, they're probably a pretty decent human being when it comes off the court. They just turn into someone on the court. So, I think a really big important part of this heel conversation is that they're not actually a bad person. It's just how you perceive them in the context of what
they're playing a character.
Yeah.
If you're going to equate it to wrestling, they're playing the heel character.
I'm
That's
sure
what they're
Bill
supposed to be.
Lambier donated to a ton of charities.
I'm sure he did.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure
Yeah.
Bill was
Shout out to Bill. Shout out to Bill.
So a couple key things. Let's just sort of recap because I know we got on to bashing Kyrie a little bit, which is why not?
It ain't over yet, baby.
No, we'll get right back into that. This particular person's convinced they are the good guy. No matter what happens, no matter what kind of press they get, they're convinced that they're the good guy. Has a lot of likable qualities, to at least a small group of people, especially if they happen to play for your team. Worthy opponent, just in the fact that they make your people look good when they beat them. I can think of many a times with James Harden where I've been in the building and I've just loved to watch him lose, but at the same time, he put up 50 against us. And so, there's that. And then, like I said, you like when they play. You like when they're there because it makes the game better. That's absolutely huge. And like I said, probably the only way I can actually classify someone as a heel is just because I legitimately don't think that they are a bad person, which sort of takes us to the next point. And this is a question that I have to ask all of you. What is a good, if you could pull out some examples from popular culture, not even necessarily basketball, but like, what is a good heel versus what's an actual evil villain like that you do not want to be associated with, even if they happen to be talented? Like some examples.
Michael Scott. No, I'm not kidding. Right? So Michael Scott, when that's supposed to be a terrible, unlikable character, and yet you end up rooting for him, right? Yeah. Why? Because he's a good heel. Because he actually means well. He's an idiot, and you end up rooting for him to not be so much of an idiot.
That's a whole different pod. Let's do a whole different pod about idiots.
No, is there a Jim Halpert if there's not a Michael Scott or even a Dwight. I mean,
how can you have somebody look so cool without standing next to someone who's not so cool?
Exactly. Who else?
That's true, because at the end of the day, Jim was not cool.
No,
he was
no,
not a cool guy.
No.
He's selling paper at a paper company.
I
Come on.
think going another level,
We
like
just lost
even
our paper audience.
Yeah.
Paper selling.
Oh,
sorry about that. Shout out to paper.
Anyway,
Shout out to
it
paper.
is what it is. Sorry.
I think I think of Nick Saban. You know, like I think
beautiful.
immediately
Oh,
when he
good one.
speaks, you're locked in because you're like, well, he's the best. You know, like right.
Yeah.
But then so much what he says pisses you off too. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just like, shut up. You got all the best players.
And what do you have
or
to complain
whatever.
about?
But
Yeah.
they didn't have the best players at Alabama until he was there. You know, they didn't have what they had till he was who he was. And like, I want to hate him. Like, I truly want to hate him. But I see myself rooting not only for him at times, but his coaching tree, where I'm like, man, that dude, he was with Saban. He's got it going on.
right,
So I feel like that's a dude that, you know, where he wears the villain well. You know, like he doesn't care. He literally doesn't care what anyone outside of himself thinks and his team and his family and whatever. But man, the guy's got it going on from a winning standpoint. But that jumps out at me, which that's a coach. But
But we
Yeah,
hate
well,
him.
and that was a big point for me. I think
Absolutely.
obviously you've got different levels of heels. So you've got the irritant, the one that kind of just gets on your nerves, nags at you.
Lance Stevenson.
Exactly,
Yes.
like Lance Stevenson.
Boogie.
And then you've got the guy who kind of just rides the middle of the road, maybe like a Kyrie, to be honest, to where he hasn't done any just egregious things
Yeah, he says
aside
that-
from maybe calling out his teammates.
or says the Earth's flat, and you're wondering why did he say that?
yeah, okay, that's a whole
Like,
different
he went to
pod,
Duke
too.
University. I mean,
But then you,
He's a deep thinker.
But
Wait,
then,
the Earth's not. No,
I know,
he's a
that's
deep
weird, right? But then you get that whole next level where they've embraced the fact that they're a heel.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to talk more about that in some of these NBA players. But I think along the lines, the number one I think of is Tom Brady.
Yeah.
That guy is Captain America, 100%, and the majority of America hates him for it.
And he
for
loves-
that
owns
reason.
it. Owns
and
it,
he
too.
owns it.
And he
completely owns it.
absolutely
He rubs it in your face all the time.
And he
So
wins.
this is what I call the Friends complex. I don't know if you guys were big into
yeah,
Friends, but
yeah.
like the first 2 or 3 seasons, nobody really watched Friends. Like nobody really watched Friends the first 3 seasons, and then like right around there, Friends gets super popular. You start getting into like the 6th through the last season. They absolutely become characters of themselves.
right, absolutely. It's over the
And,
top.
yeah, it's just like they know what's working for them, and so they keep doing it. But they accentuate it, and so like a lot of the people on this list is, and Tom Brady. Tom Brady plays football, and I feel like that guy's super focused on football. And I hate him on one level, but at the other side, a lot of respect, which I feel
Yeah, you have to
totally
respect
myself.
If I could add a category
Please do.
on that, I think that there's the guy that's so mentally weak that whenever he's a villain, he can't. He's like, well, everyone hates me anyway. I think of like Ron Artest.
Leans into it.
He's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
They got me. Okay, I'm gonna
Maybe
punch,
like Rodman
I'm gonna
was back
punch
in the day,
people in the
type thing?
stands. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they still know they're valuable. They're good guys. To
I
their
call him
team.
Mr. World Peace, by the way. because that's been,
You better.
You need to get
Otherwise, he will
But I
come
mean,
after you.
literally, like when I'm watching them, I'm like, I'm not thinking. Like for instance, I think with Rodman, while he seemed crazy, I always thought Rodman was in control of himself. Like he might be doing the most bizarre thing in the world, but I thought he knows he's
That
getting
guy's
under
gonna
their
pull
skin.
down 19
But like
boards,
when I
right.
watch Artest do it, I think to myself like he's acting like this is my role in the team, but really. He
may
like,
run into the stands
Yeah, I
and-
may
yeah.
stab you
Right,
in a minute.
yeah.
I mean,
Tony
like,
Allen, anyone?
Yes,
Tony Allen.
yes, yeah, exactly.
So just to give a good sort of bring it home perspective, just a good list is we talked about Tom. I mean, Tom is the ultimate heel. I feel like for the NFL. Kanye.
Everyone hates Tom.
Let's
If he's
get-
on your
let's get
fantasy
right.
team.
Oh, Kanye.
Yeah, Kanye.
Oh, goodness.
it's been really tough for me with Kanye
It's
in the last few years.
You've got
Really
your
has.
headphones on. You're
The
like,
West
man,
of us, too.
this guy-
could be the best heel of all time, to be honest. He's got to be on Mount Rushmore. He is solid.
And I feel like if you really want to get into contrasting, like Hulk Hogan.
Oh, yeah. Hollywood.
You get into a position to where you've got Hulk Hogan for years is the hero, and then you sort of see wrestling, and this is the perfect pod to talk about wrestling in conjunction with the NBA. But like
Absolutely.
you see wrestling take a downhill slide, and then you see Hogan become a villain, and it absolutely single-handedly at
world.
first lifts everything up, and then he
It did.
starts, and so it's a very interesting thing how one person can sort of flip the switch, and
At that point, wrestling was the biggest it had
In the
ever
world.
been, and it'll never touch that level again.
It was beating out
because of him.
It was
Because of
beating
him.
out mainstream sports for a
Yeah.
little bit.
An,
Yeah, it's
icon,
crazy.
an icon was pulling up because everyone that ever seen Hogan do that wanted to see the villain.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was.
Beautiful. Let's talk about some bad examples of heel, because I think that you have to understand this.
This is easy. Yeah.
So some bad examples. What do you guys got?
Aaron Hernandez, and the reason that it's easy.
Is it wrong?
Let's
to
just
laugh?
jump right in.
Well, look, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but look, Aaron Hernandez as a similar thing, right, to Tom Brady. He's not as great as Tom Brady, what Tom Brady does, but Aaron Hernandez was a fantastic athlete, amazing at tight end, but when you bring murder in, that takes you. Look, it's not funny
It's a
anymore,
different level.
right? That's what we mean by being
Murder.
a bad.
We're
villain.
talking gangs.
Right,
We're talking.
right.
Yeah.
It's bad news bear situation. That's not a good villain. That's not somebody that you even want to entertain watching.
Batman Robin here. So pulling the correlation here, Hernandez, you got Urban Meyer. I mean, literally,
Sure.
like you start questioning his character completely from that Florida team
every
with
other year.
Harvin and him, and then you think, oh, it's just bad luck. He squared up with him.
Certainly not on the same plane as Aaron Hernandez, but
Absolutely
I completely
not.
agree with you.
Absolutely
I
not.
completely agree
That's
with
not
what
what
you're
I'm saying at all.
He
Yeah,
also
thank
coached
you.
Aaron
Yeah.
Hernandez, by the way,
Yes.
just as
Weird connection there.
But taking him in, I mean, that's what makes me think of that. Like the people that he's promoting are the same people that seem to have this trail of bad character.
What can I do to win?
Right.
Yeah.
And then he's always playing it off like, I didn't know. I do the right thing.
Sure.
I take care of kids. And then
they texted my wife and she didn't tell me.
And then it's I go off because of my health.
Right.
And then here he goes to Ohio State and we see all the same things again.
Yeah.
But any coach that's not winning at his level doesn't get away with
He's
that.
an amazing coach. He's an
Amazing.
amazing college football coach, but
Right.
it's pretty clear that he's going to do what he can get away with.
Exactly.
No doubt.
You just cross a line, and it's
There's a line where it's not funny anymore.
exactly.
There's a line where it's not funny anymore.
So does the villain have to commit murder? I mean,
No, it doesn't have to.
Definitely not.
but
I think
I didn't
certainly
wanna-
makes it easy.
Yeah.
I think there's a point of no return where you're
step
no
in the
longer a
dark.
heel. You're just terrible.
Right.
So let's get into it, because the whole point of this is, this particular podcast is, who do we think is the biggest heel in the NBA right now? Like, and why? Like, what is it about this person that makes them amazing? Like, the NBA does not exist without this person doing what they do. However, we hate them, and we hate them in such a good way, and it feels good to hate them, and it's socially accepted to hate this person because of what they're doing. But man, if they weren't there, we wouldn't have what we have.
Yeah.
And so let's get into it. I think the first person that that we all want to talk about, and I'm a monster fan of this guy. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Oh, geez.
I don't know why, because he's terrible. He's just the worst. But Blake Griffin. So getting into Blake Griffin, like, how long has Blake Griffin been playing ball? Like, he's
got a decade
10 plus
in
years
it.
by now.
He's got a
Yeah.
decade
It's close to a decade.
Yeah.
So he's had a chance to evolve as a human.
We'll edit that out if we're wrong as hell, by the way, but I'm pretty sure
It
it's close
works.
to
No, it works. So, the things about Blake that, sort of start to stick out to me are, for starters, the very vocal opinion of a lot of other people have of Blake. But there's a particular incident. I think it was 14. Was it 2014 that this particular incident where you're just like, this person's the worst. However, he didn't actually murder it. He didn't cross the murder line. I think that's important.
Yeah.
But so there's this particular incident in 2014. And what happened?
I think he punched his team trainer in the face, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what it was he was out at a bar with his friend, who
course
was
he was.
also a team manager.
Was it Chandler Parsons? No, it was the other
shocker,
manager.
right?
Okay.
I completely forgot about
they
that.
were actually
had
friends.
no idea about this, and I still thought he was a villain. I forgot.
Yeah.
I was like,
Oh, yeah.
he's a villain.
He's got a rap sheet.
You
Yeah.
just said punched his trainer, and I was like,
Oh, yeah.
oh my gosh,
You're like-
I hate
Yeah,
you.
that
You're like,
happened.
oh, okay, he punches a water boy. Who doesn't want to do that, right?
All right.
No, this
No,
guy's
no.
his friend.
So walk me through this. They were out at a bar.
They're out at a bar together, and of course, don't quote me. They're out at a bar together, and of course, they get into this confrontation of, just challenging each other is what it is. Well, of course, Blake Griffin, and if you ever watch Blake Griffin play on the court, you know that he is a whiny baby.
Well, and that was a culture on the Clippers, right?
Oh,
so like
gosh.
Doc, Paul, Andy.
Jeez.
I mean, it was a culture to
Literally, I think that was
whine
literally
about every
in the
call.
water.
And we're still. I think they started it. We're still dealing with it now. When I see
yeah.
Houston whining about calls after game one of this, I mean, we're dealing with it now, and I think it started there.
They were the worst, and I mentioned it as a Grizzlies fan. This may be where it started. Was those wars that Zebo had
yeah.
with Blake Griffin
yeah.
down low? I mean, they fought so much, and it was so much fun to watch because I already hated Blake, but then of course I hated him way more. after
yeah.
that.
There is this amazing article that it was a few. I can't remember exactly when this came out. It was a few years back. But there's this amazing article that literally just lists the top 5, which there's more fights, but there's it's between Zebo and Blake Griffin. And I mean, and that's the thing. It's like at what point do you learn your lesson? Like you're like, hey, maybe I should mess with this guy, but like. This article's amazing, and we'll link to it in the show notes because it's such a good article to illustrate the whole Blake Griffin vibe. But you get into this whole thing of, okay, every time this guy shows up in our city, he's starting something. And for those of you that don't know, a lot of us are we're based around the Memphis area. And so we'll actually go to attend some games. I'm a big Lakers fan. I'll actually fly out to LA to go see some games because it's just such a magical place to be.
Have fun with that this year.
Anyways, but Memphis is a place. So what's so interesting is in this particular time period when Zebo's there in Memphis, it's not particularly exciting to go see a Blake Griffin game.
No.
However, it is exciting to go see a Blake Griffin. Like this is what's so magical about Blake Griffin, and this is why I kind of love the guy. I don't love him just because he's like my hero.
It's a freak athlete, man.
He's an amazing athlete. But what's so interesting is everywhere he goes, that if you show up, you may see the train wreck. You may see Teen Wolf come out. And I mean, it's amazing.
I mean, let's be real. He jumped over a Kia once.
He did.
I don't know
He
if you
actually
remember
jumped
that.
over a car
Literally
on
leapt
television.
a Kia to dunk it.
Listen. If he didn't jump over the Kia, I don't want to know.
Sure. He's actually a guy that's punished for his athleticism because, here's what I think. When Blake came out of college, I thought he was a highlight reel that a team might be on a bandwagon. And I hate to say this now, but like a Zion, like you're hoping that he's a perennial all-star.
Oh, absolutely.
But
I think that's a great comparison.
If he's not, at least he's going to get us.
Zion could be Blake Griffin,
right?
And is that disappointing? I don't know, but
right. But here's the thing: Blake has a shot. He can handle the ball. He can read the floor. He can play defense. He can do all these things that no one really cares or thinks about. It's almost like they sell him short on purpose because they don't like him. You know what I mean?
His heelness.
But he also punched a team manager
in the face
in a bar, and then subsequently was out 4 to 6 weeks with said broken hand.
Yeah. Let's get into this because I think the thing that really sells this story for me and really just cements the heel status is he literally missed 4 to 6 weeks because he broke his hand in said bar fight.
It's a pretty important time, by the way, too. You gotta remember,
was it?
They were in the hunt for the playoffs.
At this time, the Clippers are supposed to be threatening to overtake the Lakers. Lakers aren't that great, okay?
100%.
Right. It completely blows it. And that's kind of the problem of what makes Blake Griffin heel. Because look, here's the thing about Blake Griffin. I've got a lot more respect for him now because he has parked his ass in Detroit. There's nothing he can do about it. He's on a huge contract. He's playing with Andre Drummond. He's in Detroit and look, they made the playoffs. They were the 8th seed this past year, right? And he, in Detroit, where nobody's watching, made 3rd team All-NBA. He just had a great year. That was pretty under the radar, but he's not focused on basketball.
Interesting.
That's the other thing about Blake Griffin is that Blake Griffin wants to be the guy who's focused on basketball. Hey, look at me getting into it with Zebo. We're going to overtake the LA Lakers. No. I'm going to go do a movie with Whitney Cummings. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You do your thing, but he's doing stand-up. He's on yachts with Chandler Parsons. Yeah, I mean, look.
Every commercial he can get on.
He's making money. He's on a huge contract. That's fine, but don't be the basketball guy and don't play like you're the basketball guy if you're not.
So do we sort of add that into the criteria for biggest heel? Like things that are out there, because I don't think we had the original basketball player, however, not focused on basketball because
it's second to you.
Yeah.
It's okay, and so that's interesting.
We'll see some other guys like that, and I think it's important to touch on too, real quick before we get away from Blake. And we touched on it with the culture of the Clippers, and I don't know if you guys remember those days. But it wasn't just about them being whiny. It was the flopping.
Oh, big time.
Do you remember
another thing they pretty much started? Sure. Yeah.
Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, and I know we will get into more some of that stuff after a while, but Blake Griffin is 6'10", 280 pounds.
Brick shithouse.
And he should not be getting run over by Tony Allen in the post.
Yeah.
And taking it like he just got hit by a bomb.
Who was it with the quote? There's a quote out there about him being in L.A., and that being a great place for him.
Oh, yeah. And you know who said it?
Who's
DeMarcus Cousins. Are you the pot or the kettle?
Boogie.
Come on.
So just, and no disrespect for poor Boogie, but no disrespect to Boogie, but when Boogie is calling you out for...
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Called him an actor.
All right, we got to keep...
Well, Blake's just playing into the whole team. That whole team was literally like they banded together off of their selfishness. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's how
sure.
they were. And then it was like when that doesn't
What a
win,
way to go.
Yeah.
when that doesn't win, we'll hate each other.
Oh, yeah,
but we will fight for each other
Exactly.
until then.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then it's Chris's fault.
They ended up finding the two most selfish stars they could have found at the time, and I don't
and
think
then
we
had
knew
the
it.
coach's son on the team with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
I
that
don't-
won't throw a wrench.
We didn't
in the
know it
plan.
at the time.
Then you got
okay.
DeAndre Jordan. I mean,
Yeah,
we could
yeah.
do a whole clips pod.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
really could.
You
Two
could
best
spend a lot of
alley
time
oop
on it.
guys on
Amazing.
the same team ever.
How'd that work out for him? We
yeah.
got some good clips.
Oh, and that's the thing. You get into the history, and we have to move on. But you get into the history, and like I mean, being the very casual fan here compared to you guys, I very much remember being like, who? You know, I'm a Lakers fan. I'm like, but man, LA.
Who do I want to spend my money on at the time?
Clips
Yeah.
are
I may
putting
be
it
going on
together.
Clippers now.
Knows the show.
And then like just flipping the page, it's over.
Bye-bye. Yeah.
It's over. So
They never scared
Maybe
me.
back now though.
you
Maybe
never,
back
yeah,
now.
you never know. I heard they had a good offseason. So, Rondo, man, we got to talk Rondo.
Rondo.
So, first things first. Let's sort of trace the trajectory of his career, like to the teams of where this guy's been. And we don't have to start.
That's gonna be tough.
We don't have to start
Well,
at
let's
the
start
beginning.
at the beginning. We hate Kentucky.
Yeah, that's a good
he's,
start.
He's at the Wildcats.
That makes you a heel.
Yeah, like immediately you're on the favorite team in the U.S. basically at the time. What was it, Patino that he played for? How far back we going?
Gosh,
I'm pulling out stats I don't
may have
know.
been.
he might
may
have
have
been
been
like a Gillespie
Dizzy
guy or
Billy
something.
Gillespie.
No,
I don't
he
know.
was not Gillespie.
If you're listening and you actually know this, come
someone
to
chime
the
in for us.
actual website and let us know who he was.
Anybody
under.
who gives a shit about the
Was
Kentucky
Rondo with Tayshaun? was Rondo with Tayshaun? Because I saw him at
Seems
the
like
nursing
he-
home last week,
so-
and I'm pretty sure he said Patino was his coach.
That
so.
could be.
Okay, so that's a great start for heel for
Sure.
for us. And sorry, Kentucky fans, but we just lost
Love
the
you,
whole
Barrett.
Kentucky audience. We've lost the paper sellers in the Kentucky audience. If you're keeping track at home,
That was a respect hill. That was a legit. You're getting the hill because you're on the team that's
Yeah, that's like a
expected to be
Patriot
great.
shot
Yeah,
right
it
there.
is a Patriot
Yeah,
shot.
I'm not
so
apologizing.
Just giving right back to Kentucky there. So from there, like, where does because this guy's bounced around a bit, but like, where do you first remember this guy catching your radar and being like, what?
Boston.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
the Celts first.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't
The
regular
good, the
season.
bad.
It was playoffs.
Yeah.
Because there's playoff Rondo, right?
That's right. Playoff Rondo.
Well, Rondo was on the big three, but he was also on some playoff contenders before they were there. So I'm thinking back to, I mean, obviously they had Pierce.
Sure.
But who was the other?
it
Antoine
was-
Walker. Right.
No, it was.
Because he was
when-
there during the big three.
When I think of Rondo, I think of Garnett, Pierce, and
Ray Allen.
Jesus Shuttlesworth
Right.
himself. Right?
No. That he was there. I'm saying before that though, he still had some playoff runs with those.
Was
other
he there
two.
with Twan? Okay.
Yeah, he was there with
Okay.
Twan and with Pierce, and it was just kind of that like.
Sure.
I mean, he was the big three
Yeah.
at that point, but they just weren't a title contender, so to speak.
So playoff Rondo. Where does that start to catch on? Like, do you remember because I've heard all of that, but like, where do you first start to feel like?
I don't know. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm not sure they're as successful without him as far as because what Rondo does better than anybody, and I'm going to go on a limb here and say still, like they're talking about Rondo this year. He's a Laker now. Okay, they're talking about Rondo being the 10th or 11th man. Look. Rondo's in phenomenal shape. He's still in phenomenal shape. He can play with anybody. Now, he doesn't have a shot. He's never really had much of a shot.
That's
He doesn't
exactly
need
where
to.
I was going.
He can literally, when he was playing in New Orleans, I think it was with Boogie and AD at the time, may have just been AD, he literally would have a game with 20 assists. 20 assists.
Oh, yeah.
He's still capable of putting out that many dimes because he's an amazing kind of an old school point guard,
right.
to be honest with you.
Well, from a player standpoint, I think I like to jump into like Alonzo, a guy that right now in the NBA we're thinking, or maybe at Ben Simmons, where you're like, man, you can't not really have him on the floor on your team, but like they don't score. That's almost unheard of.
Right.
But then with Rondo, like he was the first guy that I thought to myself, like he could literally not score and be the best player on the floor. Maybe not best player, but you know what I mean? Like be the catalyst to all of it. And I was really impressed with him early on with that, like
Sure,
right.
there wasn't many point guards that I thought could be out there, not really get double digits and still be super effective.
Yeah.
But where they came up with playoff Rondo was he would literally, quote unquote, tank a regular season game on a regular basis. So the reason that a lot of those stats seem so gaudy was because the game before you'd watch him play, it could be, a completely different game, but he would play and have 2 points, 3 assists, 7 turnovers, and a rebound, and you're like, well, what in the world? And then the next night, he's got 15, 20, and 18.
He shows up when he needs to. Yeah, shows up when he wants to.
But then the playoffs came around, and you've got this guy who is a lockdown defender who sees everybody on the court and knows their steps well before it. Nick talked earlier about Kyrie's mentality for the game. I don't know that anyone has a better mentality than Rondo.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, just sick floor general.
Let me defend Rondo a little bit. This is an era where we're not sort of at this point, and we're sort of starting to get here now, and you see this with Kawhi. We're sitting people for games, which is very tough as a fan. To come into and say, well, the guy came to see tonight's not playing. But like at that point,
thanks, Greg Popovich.
At that point, do you get your break by being playoff Rondo?
I think it's more in vogue now. I mean, that's the thing is like, look, I'm not saying Rondo kind of started that because look, I mean, look, LeBron is going to take some time off whether he's on the floor or not. That's just the fact of the matter. LeBron can take 6 weeks in the middle of a season, 6-7 weeks in the middle of a season to say, yeah, I'm not going to D up right now, but I will see you in the playoffs. And honestly, it's tough to kind of come out against that at this point. No. I mean, because it works. It can work for you.
So I have a lot of people that I need to throw under the bus on this list that we've sort of put together. So I would love to bust on Rondo for another 20 minutes, but let's keep going. Chris Paul.
Yeah. We got someone that has major issues with Rondo, oddly enough.
Yeah. So we got to jump in a great segue to Chris Paul. Where do you go with Chris Paul?
Aren't there guys on this as you run through, though, like you hear about him and you're like, oh, yeah, he's easy to not like, but you don't hate him? You know, like Chris Paul, like
all of them.
Who can you talk about with Chris Paul that's like, oh, no, he's a good dude? Like, you know what I mean? Like Rondo. Like, to me, I think Rondo's
you got some
that
love
journeyman.
for Rondo.
Yeah, like I respect him. And like Chris Paul, I think maybe that's another criteria is like, do you throw respect out because of things they've done? Like they've earned respect and you've washed it away. Because with Chris Paul, like I see the video of him punching a guy in the balls when he was in college, and right away I just think to myself like, who? What?
Right.
Who else does that?
Right.
And especially an elite guy, like a guy that's talking about being a top 15 pick. He's punching a dude in the nuts in or college ball, and I just think to myself like, what? And
so he's a dirty player.
Right.
I mean, starting off, but. Go ahead.
No, 100%.
Well, also look here. We talked about this earlier, and I think that this, this is where Kyrie gets some of this pretty honest, the misplaced honor type thing. Look, Chris Paul on every single team he has ever been on really started in L.A. I mean, look again. You laughed about him having problems with Rondo. He's got problems with Blake Griffin. They hate each other's guts.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's part of the reason it broke up.
Big time.
But every team Chris Paul is on, especially since the clip. It's, hey, guys, I know how to win. Come with me. I know how to win. In Houston, guys, come with me. I know how to win. He doesn't have any titles.
Absolutely.
He's never played in a finals.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like at what point as an NBA player, because I think everybody's in your year, even your coaches sometimes saying, hey, you got to step up.
Yeah.
You got to lead.
Yeah.
And some guys, I think that totally puts them in the position to doing that. But we're also talking about the best players in the world on every team.
Yeah.
And so Chris Paul's tough for me because I'm the guy that will sit and actually root for Chris Paul for 4 weeks, and then the 5th week I'm like, God, this guy's terrible.
Well, let me say this, and we look. If you want to root for Chris Paul, you root for Chris Paul now, because now Chris finds himself in Oklahoma City. He's got he got traded for the one contract he could get traded for. The only other contract in the NBA I think he can get traded for is Wiggins up in Minnesota. And if I'm in Minnesota and I'm as miserable as I am with Wiggins, I'm still not trading for Chris Paul.
Right. No.
This is a team that's rebuilding. Clearly rebuilding. They've got picks up to 2026 from this trade. Look, you want to root for Chris Paul? We're about to see how good he is at basketball.
Do you feel like
that's a dumb thing to say? He's very good at basketball.
Do you feel like maybe they're going to be taking the hammer to the piggy bank up in OKC this year because ticket sales might not be as good? I don't know.
Look, I'm excited for OKC this year. That's the thing.
How do you sell that to a ticket holder? I don't know. That's tough. That's
you
tough.
know what? And
I'm excited.
Sell the future.
But if you're going to be in a market that's going to want, look, OKC is a damn good market. They will show up and watch you play.
That's true.
Aren't those guys like born to hate Houston though? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, and then you're getting the antagonist into your team.
Yeah.
And I think Paul's the ultimate like clutch guy too.
Yeah.
I think he's clutch. I don't think he's not capable of winning a game.
I'm not checked the schedule yet, but I want your opinion, Joe. Do you think that the Houston games sell out this year
with OKC?
Yeah.
Or
yeah?
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Like, if I'm a OKC fan, like I can still give a lot of respect to Westbrook. I think he garners it.
Right.
I think he
because
gets a standing O.
Yeah.
I really do.
It's one that he put the time.
That still sells tickets, though, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
well, and what I'm saying,
The bigger piece is the way he hated on KD and the way he left. I think one thing that helps Westbrook, whether it's garnered or not, is I think that he was left being left. Like I was hearing people left me, and then they said, "What's best for the team?" And I said, "I do what I want."
Yeah.
Now whether or not he really said, "I want out," I don't know. But I mean, I'm not a Westbrook fan. I don't root for Westbrook. I respect Westbrook.
Sure.
Like way more than Chris Paul. I think Chris Paul is going to throw people under the bus. I think he's going to hit a clutch shot to go up by 1 with 2 seconds left. They still lose because they're pathetic. And then he's just going to like point a finger at everyone.
Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah. And
Danilo Gallinari.
And you're going to be like, "Oh, you're the leader. That's fantastic. Now I know why you can't win." And that's how I feel about
But
it.
I think the on the court stuff is, I mean, so aplenty with Chris Paul. It's crazy. But the big piece, and this is crazy that we talked about him right after Rondo. So I don't know if you guys remember the issue between Chris Paul and Rondo where they got into it, and allegedly someone spit on someone else, and then Chris Paul got his friends and went and tried to find him in the locker room afterwards and stuff like that. Well, this was all built on the idea that Rondo put out in the media, which I think is got a lot of credibility to it, is that Chris Paul projects himself as this really good guy. He's the president of the Players Association.
Right.
Good point.
He is known as this good guy socially, but every teammate he's ever had and every opponent he's ever been against can't stand it.
Yeah, they can't stand it.
So that's kind of
Coaches.
that's what Rondo took from that fight and put it in the media, and I think there's just a lot of credibility to that because he had some people backing him. And, he had some people like Glenn Big Baby Davis, which I'm not sure. Like, okay, I'm not sure how credible he is, but he had some people really behind him going, you know what? There's a lot of juice to what he's saying here.
Oh, it's solid. Okay, we got to keep moving. This, my
Can we
opinion.
skip Boog?
Oh,
My opinion. So here's the deal.
Oh, boogie.
we sort of set this show in motion, and we sort of made our list of, and I tell you, 3 days ago, guys.
It's like if you found out Lex Luthor just got Lyme's disease.
Right.
Like 2 days ago, and you're like, oh, well, shit, it's a
3 days
terrible
ago. When we first put this podcast together, I'm kind of like, Boogie, DeMarcus Cousins, let's tear this guy down because he is a great heel.
Sure.
And then the guy, we don't know this yet, and so maybe when this podcast goes live, we'll have a little more on this. But this guy's career may be over.
It could be done.
And so, we had DeMarcus Cousins on the list because I'll be honest, there's never been a time when I've been in a live arena watching DeMarcus Cousins that I did not hate this guy. Sure. But the second we walk out, I'm like, you know what? Boogie's not that bad. But then I hate him when I'm watching him. Yeah. But I feel like we got to get away. Like, if I could just say 2 or 3 things about this guy, it's number one, it's his face.
That's exactly it. He's playing basketball in a sewer.
Wait,
what
Joe,
he's doing.
where did he play in school? Where did he play college?
At Kentucky.
Oh, good call.
Oh, there you go. So, but that's
the
the
less
thing,
respectable Kentucky.
Can I
to be
just
clear.
say, it's just something about the way that this guy looks. You're right. It's like he smells something bad every time I see it, and it's not fair.
He
It's
smells something
not
bad
fair.
from his own teammates. He
Fix your
smells something
face,
bad from
dude.
his
Come
coach.
on.
He just always looks like he's about to cry, which I realize most of the
'cause
time.
he is.
I'm not sure that he is. I feel like, anyways.
Let me say this before we pass up on Boog, because look, if Boog never has his time in Sacramento, when I say to in his defense, it's not really in his defense. He's still a kid. I mean, he's still coming in.
Exactly.
Sacramento was a disaster.
Yes.
He was a problem, and the problem issue followed him. But in New Orleans, he played his butt off, and he ends
Right.
up tearing his Achilles. And then look, if you're watching the finals, I think it was Game 2 when Boog's playing his ass off.
Yes.
Before he messes up his quad. I think he messed up his quad a few games later. But look, I think he was redeeming himself to
But
be, this is our tough guy. Or he's a tough guy. He's difficult, but he's our tough guy. Maybe getting into the Draymond territory a little bit.
But is that because he was getting the ball? I feel like
Right.
Boogie is a ball-dominant big man that needs the ball a lot.
Oh, they didn't have anybody left.
Yeah, and literally, they got guys dropping like flies. Like, hey, Boog, get in there.
Yeah,
and of
yeah.
course, he's getting featured.
It's true.
So of course, and he's playing high temp.
I can see that.
all
Sure.
across the board because he's getting the ball.
For me, he falls a little bit under the umbrella of like he would have been more hated if they were more dominant. Like if he's not at Sacramento for so long, like I mean, he bandwagoned with a couple teams here late, obviously going with Golden State and the Lakers, but I'm just not. I don't care enough to think that he's a terrible villain. You know what I mean? Like I just don't. I don't think he put in that kind of playoff run to really hate him. He didn't take my team out or my guy out, so I've never hated him.
Sure.
That's the thing. So I have a really weird offshoot just because I want to. I feel really bad for the guy with the injury. You just never want to see these even these kind of guys.
He's never got his money, by the way.
No,
it's really
crazy.
devastating.
That
That's
actually makes me feel bad for the guy.
So let me ask you something, and this is one of those small moments that matter in a really, really big way. If he comes back towards the end of the final, when he comes back in, and he plays that game, that's just you're like, oh. This is the guy. Like he comes in, he plays, and the next game's not so great. But if he comes in and he plays 3 games, lights out, and the Warriors bring it home because he's there, does that change your opinion of him? I mean, this is what I think about. Like there are guys that are for me perpetually the heel because they never quite reach.
What's
the
crazy
apex.
about that is that it's a fair question and it's also possible. So let's say what happens that
Sure.
Golden State actually wins, right? So KD goes down, Boogie comes in, and Boogie looks like Boogie pre-Achilles, right? Number one, Boogie's about to get paid. So Boogie's
Right.
not signing a 1 year. I
Right.
think it was $3.5 million with the Lakers this year. Look, the only reason he's not getting paid is because he's permanently hurt. Boogie is a hero. Okay,
Right.
number one.
Hero's absolutely the word.
Yeah, he's an absolute hero, and he is probably getting paid quite a bit of money to play somewhere. So yeah, that's fair.
What do you think? What do you think he gets paid? Like who? What do you think he gets paid?
I don't think he gets a max. I'll say
No.
Does he come back
of
to
course
the
not.
Warriors?
yeah.
I don't think he gets long term anymore.
Yeah, they can't
I think
afford him to do what they
gets
want.
Well,
He
again,
gets a good one-year
remember
deal.
on this basis though, he there's no torn quad, so he's coming over the Achilles, right? And he has helped Golden State win the title.
I don't know what his market is for himself. Like, is he looking for the money only at this point? I mean, he's got a ship,
Yeah.
and he hasn't got the big contract.
Right.
I feel like he's the type of guy that does go to Phoenix, Minnesota,
Me too.
Memphis.
I do too.
and
At this
says,
point, I do.
If he could get max money or close to it, or a long-term deal,
Yeah.
because he's never had that. I mean, I think that's maybe why I don't hate him as bad, is because like early on I thought, man, he's off in Sacramento, they're not doing anything, but he
Right.
never got
Never
credit
got
for
it.
being a top dude,
Right.
And he really was a top dude. I mean,
Amazing
he's
athlete.
that dude
Yeah,
where you're
amazing
like, no
player.
one that size moves like that.
It really is tragic. It really is tragic. I hope he comes back, but he's 29. I think it's tough.
It is.
Consistently leads the league in technical fouls and ejections.
Yeah, he'll
too.
probably be.
That's-
He'll
that's
probably be a coach.
I'm actually
soon,
okay with that. I think
actually.
that's awesome. That's right. So I'm going to go ahead and intentionally end this whole run with Warriors or ex-Warriors because
We could just name the whole team.
let's just go ahead and throw out there minus Curry. I hated every one of them
as
for a
far
long
as I'm
time.
concerned,
I like
it's
Clay,
just
too.
starting
But respect. So Draymond, for me, this is the apex. This is it.
Of villainy?
This
the
is your
guy-
number one?
This is one of the guys that I respect immensely. I love him, but at the same time, you got a guy who says, you know what? The playoffs are coming up. I should lose 30 pounds. Like, what did the guy lose? Because he's like,
It's
you know
about
what?
25 pounds.
You know
Yeah.
what?
That was at the All-Star break, right? Yeah.
Screw the season. But you know what? The playoffs are coming up. I should lose weight, because now I should start playing.
Yeah.
And there's just so much about this guy. And this is another guy that it's not fair, but there's something about the way his face contorts itself during a game that makes me think that he's a crybaby.
He's a mean mugger.
You know,
Sure.
he is
Yeah.
a mean mugger.
He is.
So Draymond to me is up there. He's not necessarily my top, but he's definitely up there. And we'll get to the tops in a few minutes of who we think is the villain. But
I'll just say this about Draymond. I mean, I love Draymond, and the height of villainy for Draymond for me, the technicals and stuff, that's stupid stuff, and I think that does hurt his team. But how bad is he hurting his team? They've been pretty successful, right? I think the height of it for me was getting into it with KD at that. I think it was a Clippers game. Like that was a real moment of, oh, this is about Draymond. You know what I mean? And look, he can say what he wants, and it seems like they're on good terms. There's no way, at least in my mind, that doesn't play a part of him leaving the team. I don't think there's any way. I mean, he literally said it. They read his. They did a mouth reading. He's like, "That's why I'm out of here," or something like that. I mean, it was. That was pretty.
I
early
completely
on.
agree that's the apex of it. I don't think that you can compete with that being.
If I'm
who he
starting a
is.
team,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about. I mean, literally, that's how
But
much I like having him.
With that said, like I think what kills me about Draymond is like when I think about how he's willing to be the guy that does the little things. Like, you know what I mean? Like he might score 21 night and then not score at all and never come off the floor type guy.
Right.
Because he's doing so many good things. Great big man passer, great defender.
When he's
all
in
that.
shape, of
right?
course, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
He's
those
gotta
4
be in
games,
shape,
he
but-
was phenomenal.
Right.
But
He
for
was
Draymond,
phenomenal. He really was.
But for Draymond, what kills me, and he's not the only guy, but when a guy has, okay, your 7th playoff technical, you're missing a game, and you're sitting on 6 and you're willing to get one,
I'd forgotten about
that's
that.
different from
Yeah.
me. Like, it's different when you're
Maybe
giving
that's
the
the
other
apex,
guys
actually.
a
That's
point.
pretty bad.
Yeah.
You're willing to give a point.
That
in
was the year.
ball.
I think that was the year they won it, or Cleveland won it, right?
So he kicks a guy in the
That's
groin.
set up
the next game.
I was wrong. That's the apex.
but and that cost him a championship. But
Yeah.
how many times did they get away with it? I
Sure.
mean, that wasn't his first time to get set out in the playoffs. I'm like, how can you get 7 technicals?
Yeah.
There's, what did we looked at Mike Conley? Forgive us Grizzlies fans here, but like, he's never been ejected from a game.
Sure.
I mean, like, yeah, we're talking extremes there, but I mean, you're in the playoffs.
I don't like that call, sir, is what Mike said.
To be fair, the Grizzlies have not won that many championships. So
Exactly,
just throwing that
yeah.
out there.
Not a lot. Not even in the Bryant Reeves days.
It time.
So
Hey,
we'll-
but real quick to end on Draymond.
Yeah.
Draymond just signed a $100 million deal. I know that's a lot of money. He could have hit free agency next year, and if he's healthy,
could've
probably got
maxed.
a lot more money. We talk about what Tom Brady does by taking less money. Look, that takes him out of the villain role for me. Now ask me mid-season whenever he blows it a couple times,
Hey,
and I'll change my
but-
mind.
And he's 30 pounds overweight.
I'll say this right now, though. Every guy on the list, every guy, I don't want him on my team. Every guy you've said I don't want on my team, Draymond.
Yeah, I'm
I don't know
with
if I
you.
give him
That's
that money.
beautiful.
I got that guy on my team.
That's good.
100%.
I want to play next to Draymond.
Anywhere that guy goes, I'm going to that game.
Draymond.
Any team
Absolutely.
he's on, I'm
Yeah.
going to that game.
Yeah.
And
But the
he's a
difference
heat-
is,
he's a
do
heat
you
seeker.
want that guy on your team? That's what I say. I mean, like, if
He's gonna do
I'm
whatever you need him to do.
If I get thrown on Blake Griffin's team, I'm looking for a trade. If I get it on Paul's team, I'm looking for a trade. If I get on Draymond's team, I'm like, man, I've hated you.
Don't
Let's
worry.
do this.
Blake's going to
Yeah.
try to get himself traded before you go. So
So
it'll be fun.
throw another wrestling term at you. What it's called is getting heat. That means you get attention on you, whether it be for the right reasons or the wrong reasons. And
Right.
he is a heat seeker.
He's a heat seeker.
100%.
Yes.
So we have this whole thing where it's sort of a big deal in the world if you have the tallest building, right? And so for a while, I would think, yeah, man, Draymond in my list is the tallest, and then all of a sudden someone builds a taller building,
Absolutely.
and they've got and this guy,
This building
if you
towers.
really want to talk about the apex, if you really want to talk about the guy that I absolutely hate, but I respect to the absolute hilt, the guy that I will go see anywhere, no matter, like, I would fly overseas to watch this guy play. Like, this guy is amazing to watch play. However, I cannot stand him, and I want him to get beat in every game, and that's Kevin Durant.
Really?
And listen, I'm not going to go as far. Like, I was upset when he got booed and he got in, like, he got injured.
yeah.
Like, that was
Yeah, that's
crazy.
not worth it. Yeah.
That's respect the guy all day, and you never want to see me. But like this guy, and I mean, I know where it started for me. I don't know where it started for you, but like, the trajectory that this guy took coming out of Oklahoma, it was just insane. Like the vibe, and apparently, it's worked out for the guy in a very, very big way. But Kevin Durant is just the top of the mountain for me, and just being like, I cannot stand seeing this guy win.
I think I can tell you why it is. I
Yeah.
think I can look
Hit
at
me.
you and tell you why that is. Because I think Kevin Durant, and you could talk about the decision that certainly opened the door with LeBron. I think Kevin Durant is the embodiment of this new NBA that we're in the middle of, and that we're also starting to get used to. But it's leaving OKC to not go quote unquote start your own thing, right? Of the NBA we're used to: Barkley, Suns, Jordan, Bulls, right? Ewing, Knicks. I'm going to go join these guys that just beat me, and I'm going to win some titles, and that rubs people the wrong way.
That's the worst. They
Exactly.
just beat him.
Exactly. And that's what drives me crazy about Durant is that I can't believe I even get to watch him play basketball. I've never seen anybody like him.
It killed him, and I want to kill your point, but it killed him because he lost to them. If he leaves from them
Yeah,
and goes
go
to play with
anywhere else.
LeBron
Goes
in the
anywhere
East,
else.
or had he been in the East
Sure.
and Golden State had won 2 straight and he joins them,
Yeah.
I mean, he's still going to get hate. But it's literally a team he had on the ropes.
Right.
His own, I'm at a team that we started. I am the
Right.
team I left to go get on the contender.
Right.
There's
So
some
that's
people that don't know this story. And so we need to actually play it out step by step. This is pre-finals, right?
Yeah, it's Western Conference
Right.
Finals.
It's Western Conference. In Western Conference, he's got them on the ropes.
3-2.
They take him out. And then they move on to this, and this is the Golden State Warriors. They move on to the finals, and they're playing all of our favorite play in the world. No. But they're playing a team, and they get beat. Right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, and they get beat. And the phone call comes from Golden State to Kevin Durant, right? That's
Oh,
the rumor. That's the rumor, right?
Yeah, I'm
Of
sure that's how it
course.
started, yeah.
The phone call comes to Kevin Durant because they're like, if we never want this ever to happen again, what are we going to do? And they call him. But there's a decision. You're right. In my opinion, you're right. He could go 2 or 3 other places, and everybody in the NBA is rooting for this guy.
Right.
But how do you
Well, that's
storyline?
exactly why Westbrook's going to get cheered when he comes back.
Exactly.
And Durant got booed out of the building.
Yeah.
That's exactly the reason. Everybody in Oklahoma City is going to be like, okay. And he was the savior of that franchise.
Yeah.
He was drafted as a Seattle
He was a supersonic. That's right. Yeah.
And they took him to OKC because they had Durant. That was the reason they were able to move that team the way they were able to, is because they had that superstar cornerstone, and he was the savior of that team.
Yeah, think back
and he
to-
dropped him after losing to
Right.
Golden
I
State.
would have
to
disliked
go to Golden State.
Westbrook. I'm like hating on Westbrook and thinking he's holding Durant back. I hope Durant leaves. I mean, that could be a storyline.
Sure.
You know, like I'd leave OKC too. You know, and then here, what are we 3 or 4 years later, and you flip the script because one seems like the good guy and one seems like that was a pathetic choice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That was certainly
And-
the storyline at the time of like KD can't
But
win.
that doesn't identify it for me. I know that sounds cheap, and I
agree with
hear the Stephen A. Smith and all these guys for it or against it, and that's everyone's storyline for years. That's not what it is for me. For me, I feel like Kevin Durant was that guy that you wanted to hate because you could do everything right against him and he could still beat you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that starts it, and then I don't know why a guy at that level has to whine at the level he does, whether it's during the game, to the media, why he
Media,
creates
yeah.
burner accounts, whatever he's doing. Like, are you serious? Like, he almost seems like a sociopath as far as a player goes. But like, why do you need that?
And you're so touching on my main point with Kevin Durant. So to me, I put what Kevin Durant did in a very close box to what LeBron did with the decision. I see them very similarly. And I think that LeBron since then has vindicated himself somewhat. Going back to Cleveland helped repair a lot of those things. And then he kind of gets to do what he wants, to be honest. And he's repaired his public image from that standpoint. What Durant has done since he's made that move has become a straight villain in the media.
Absolutely.
If you follow this guy on Twitter, he's gotten into fights with people on Instagram who call him out for stuff.
Yeah.
He gets into fights with other players. He is constantly berating reporters now in the media and stuff. And the Kevin Durant that was back in Oklahoma City, the you the real MVP Kevin Durant, was a humble guy. And that was why he was so loved, not just in Oklahoma City, but across the league. And then he goes to Golden State. He becomes a new guy. To me, he becomes the ultimate heel. And I think that's what, at least for me, puts him at the top of the list.
I can speak to that truly as a Grizzlies fan. I think Marshall and I were both at the game where we go into 3 overtimes against OKC.
Best game
and
I've ever been at.
Yeah, I mean, the Grizzlies lose that game in 3 overtimes, and we stand up and applaud the team's effort. But everyone there knew that the best player on the floor was Kevin Durant, and everyone there knew that this is something special. This is a good player.
Absolutely.
And so, as a Grizzlies fan, I'm built to hate him, but I just respected the heck out of him. And
So much respect.
To fall that far wasn't because he went to Golden State. That's not what it is. And I think that's just like the foundation of what everyone builds this off of. But it certainly, for me, wasn't just that.
Well, 2 things. One, again, that's kind of why I think he represents, at least for me, kind of the new generation of players and dealing
That's
with
true.
stuff that I'm not used to. Is that, look, these guys are kids. I mean, was he at Texas 1 year?
Yes.
Okay, so he plays at Texas 1 year. He's in the NBA. Social media grows. And now, if you're on it, you got Twitter, you got Instagram, you've got people coming at you that were not coming at you before because they didn't have the way to come at you. You had sports writers, you had media pundits, whatever, people on TV. That's it, right? So now he's one of the first, at least in my memory, to falter with the I'm going to go so far as I'm going to create a burner account to come after somebody.
Right.
But another part of it is this. He got hurt, and that's awful. And it's bad for the NBA because, again, Kevin Durant's in town. I'm going, right? He's on that list of people you're going to see because we may never see a player like him again, right?
He's generational guy.
He's top 15 players all time for me, easy.
Oh, yeah.
But Brooklyn, he goes to the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, and again, I got some. I know he and Kyrie are buddies, and maybe that has nothing to do with Kyrie. I mean, you hear conflicting things, but this is the second time that he's changed teams, right?
I'm gonna just throw this out here because this is something that I'm gonna make sure we do another podcast on. If this year doesn't go great, does Kevin Durant ever play a game as a Brooklyn Net? I don't need to hear an answer. Just throwing it out there because it's
there's plenty of thoughts there.
It's interesting.
Yeah, sure.
So,
but I want to point out one
Go.
thing real quick too, because to me, the biggest thing so far that has made Kevin Durant, and I read this in an article by Andrew Becker that was on 12 Up back in December 2018. When Kevin Durant was asked why people hate him, do you know what his response was?
do tell.
It's because I'm so damn good at basketball.
Is that
a heel? I mean, that's
a Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
That's Hollywood Hogan in the backstage getting interviewed by Mean Gene and telling everybody in the world to suck it.
Yeah,
Am I
that's
right?
beautiful.
It's just so good, and that is the most heel thing you could ever do. And I just thought
he leaned
we had to
in.
point that out.
He leaned in. Yeah.
Every guy's got to have something that makes you like him, though. Like, I'll be honest. When I saw LeBron get asked why or if he thinks he's the greatest player ever, y'all remember this interview? He's like got on a leather jacket or whatever. His response, I mean, literally made me cringe. Like, it was uncomfortable. Like, in my opinion, if you're the best player ever, you don't have to say it.
Right.
Like, and
Agreed.
And everyone can have a different opinion, but it made me cringe. But here's the thing. With LeBron, he does so many good things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, you could go down a list of whether it's being a leader, whether it's that he shares the ball, whether it's that he's never been arrested. He's, you're not speculating he's on PEDs, that he's, smoking weed and getting suspended for games, whatever. Like, there's a lot of good that he's doing, and his whining, isn't at the level of a KD. But, like, with KD, like, maybe he is doing some good that I'm not reading about. Maybe he is doing some things that I should respect more, but I don't care about those because I'm too busy being pissed.
Nobody cares about your foundation.
Yeah, your foundation's taking a back seat to your whining on Twitter. Like, I mean, people have real jobs and get worn out about real stuff and don't make a cent compared to you, and they're living with it and they're being mature adults. And I feel like, I mean, at some point you mature, like, and I just don't see that from
This
him.
has gone the other way.
Yeah, like, I think of, like, seeing a poster of, like, the Mount Rushmore. You said top 15 guy, and, like, immediately I was like, crap, no, he's not a top 15 guy. He probably is. He might be a top 10 guy, but I don't want to give him that credit. Sure. And so I just think a guy's got to help himself out every now and again, because everyone makes mistakes, and in the social world, villains are going to be out there, but, there's guys that do good stuff for him. And for me, KD just begs me to hate him. He begs me to, and I'm like, here you go, buddy. And I'm going to do it.
Yeah, round the horn. Okay, quick. One name. I need one name, and I need like 2 sentences as to why. Honorable mention. Who did we miss on the list?
I got one. Here's one, and you guys might totally disagree, but when I think of just the term villain, I think Kobe falls in the villain term for so many reasons, because he's on the periphery of, for one, great competitor, obviously a top player in the world ever, but he's always competing with people, and he gets away with doing stuff that other guys didn't, but he played it right, and I mean, obviously there's some off the court stuff, but I think Kobe, to me, he's easy to hate.
Yeah,
and
it was a different NBA at that time too. By the way, it really was. I mean, the NBA was really, he could get away with it a lot easier.
How about him
now.
and Shaq? I mean, gosh.
Who you got?
How about Carmelo Anthony?
Oh, yeah, done.
Yes.
Laying down in the middle of the floor. You guys remember that clip?
Yeah.
Literally, basketball keeps going around him, but he's literally he never gets up.
Yeah.
He never. It's a
a great one.
beautiful.
The ultimate one-man offense. If you want to see the ball stop, throw it to Carmelo.
I love
That's it.
Who you got?
For me, it's easy. It's Kyrie. I mean, it could be right now. I think Kyrie comes out and has a really, really good time in Brooklyn and really plays well starting out. But I think the guy's a poison right now. That's Kyrie Irving.
I love it. Mine's James Harden. I love James Harden to death, but
Agreed.
I cannot stand to watch that guy win. So that's my honorable mention. All right, so real quick, if you're listening to this, we hope you enjoyed, of course, the podcast today. But who did we miss? Who did we miss as the biggest heel in the NBA? Who's the greatest villain that you have to kind of respect? Who are some honorable mentions that you throw out there? So who wins your vote? So we want to hear. Go to upshotpodcast.com. Remember that you can grab notes there, but also tell us where we were wrong. That's what we want to hear. What do you think? Who are your biggest heels in the NBA? And where did we miss out on something? Did we say something that, pissed you off? We want to hear all about it. Also, make sure that you subscribe to the Upshot Podcast and make sure to leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you actually listen to podcasts. We are going to be back every single week with a new episode discussing the biggest moments in the NBA and why they matter right now. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon.
You've been listening to the Upshot NBA Podcast. Yeah. If you like what you heard, make sure to click the subscribe button so you can get a new Upshot episode every week. And make sure to leave us a review on your podcast app as soon as you're done listening. up.